Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you and call this meeting to order. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I would approve a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as published. Any comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Public comments. Either members of the public out there like to make comments? Nobody has signed up. There's no response, so we'll move on. Finance. We would like to welcome Lisa House here to give us a financial update.
Is this on? Well, good evening. I'm glad it still feels like summer tonight. This will be brief. The first thing I want to share with you that this will be the first year in Idaho that school districts will be reporting not only their average daily attendance of students, but also enrollment. Recall, as a result of the last legislative session, the House Bill 293 now, we are going to report enrollment 4 times a year, and then also in different categories of students, English language learners, free and reduced, special ed, gifted and talented. And that's probably really a foreshadowing of effective next fiscal year, next school year, that the legislature has some pretty strong momentum of starting to pay school districts based on enrollment versus average daily attendance. And the State Department of Education's kind of head financial guy now for a couple of decades feels like average daily attendance represents about 96% of enrollment. And the legislators want some kind of validation on that data. In terms of our enrollment for the first week of school, generally, pretty much without exception, it foreshadows the first 9 weeks of school for us, which drives 75% of our annual funding. And compared to what we budgeted, in terms of estimated dollars, we're down about $200,000 compared to our projections. And the major drops are Farm and Stidwell, primarily in 6th grade, Hope, Kootenai, Sandpoint Middle School, and the alternative high school. And then there's some real gains, even historically, at Southside and Northside, reaching almost their top numbers since we've been a school district since July of '99. And the alternative high school, in terms of just the dollars, takes up the lion's share of that projected loss, just because their divisor is so much lower than any of the other schools. So last year, our first 9 weeks enrollment was 3,833, and we came in last Friday at 3,824. And then the only other thing I would add is that, recall in April of 2019, our demographer reported out to us projecting some pretty sizable increases at the secondary level as we look out 6 years. And if you just compare it to this year, they had projected we would this year be at 3,861, and the big variances are Hope, Sandpoint Middle School, Farm and Stidwell, and Kootenai. And I think our superintendent has some real strong thoughts on potentially specific to Sandpoint Middle School, what's driving maybe reduced enrollment. We do budget in our supplemental levy contingency funds, and then also in our general fund what we call budget buffer dollars, which in total are $330,000. And because of some particularly large class sizes at Northside, they've taken up maybe half of those dollars in deploying additional resources. And then if I transition to the state, in Idaho, all agency heads have to provide the governor with a draft budget for fiscal year 21 by Labor Day. And Superintendent Yubera draft budget for next fiscal year is asking for $100 million more than this year. It's about a $2 billion budget this year for K-12, and she's asking for a 5.34 increase, and the last 3 years have been in the low 6%, so substantively lower. And what's really important for you to take home is of that $100 million, 35% of that is strictly due to in statute appropriations that are based on projected enrollment, and we haven't seen that portion of any kind of appropriation increase attributable to projected growth. Then the next biggest line item is $40 million in requesting modifications to the current state career ladder, and Superintendent Yubera says that it would be her hope that that would go to veteran teacher pay, and then the notes of the proposed budget say that it would be based on the governor's education task force, which is due to make their recommendations in November. And then she ranked 8 priorities. The first priority would be the teacher career ladder. The second is literacy intervention. Those align with our governor's first 2 priorities, but the third priority is different. She's added a small line item for social and emotional learning, and the governor's third priority is college and career ready. Then the next part of the process is that governor will deliver his budget request to open the legislative session in January, and then Superintendent Yubera will come back to the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee generally in mid to late February. Also, the the governor's office has significantly adjusted downward their projections not only for revenues this year, but also preliminary projections for fiscal year 21. Again, that's mostly still attributable to income tax collections. There was a release from the governor's arm of economic forecasting for August for the September report, and August numbers came in slightly better than July numbers. But of course, there has been a fair amount of dialogue about a more mild recession on the horizon, and we will follow the economic forecast this fall very closely. And finally, I mentioned this Governor's Education Task Force. The next meeting is in Moscow this Friday. There are different subcommittees, and this is the subcommittee that now retired Senator Keogh is chairing on recruiting and retaining teachers. And so far, her committee has voiced that they want to keep the career ladder in place. They want to increase the rungs in the career ladder, and even if the state were to go to a student-weighted funding formula, as of their last meeting, they would recommend that the career ladder dollars, which are half of the $2 billion, almost $1 billion of the annual appropriation, remain separate and distinct. So, we'll see where that goes. Mm-hmm. And then the ISBA sent to you all today their preliminary resolutions for the November meeting. And the one thing I would just point out is that one of the resolutions mirrors what Senator Thane originally proposed as a bill last year to eliminate the indefinite term maintenance and operation supplemental levy and remove the criteria of it representing a certain percentage of your budget and grandfathering those districts that currently have indefinite term levies in place, those 5 districts, and lengthening the prospective term to 3 to 10 years. And of course, this is relevant to us because we have an indefinite term ballot measure on November 5th.
Right.
Let's conclude my remarks. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions on the the enrollment deficit, and you pointed out 6th grade, and I was just wondering if you or Tom had kind of thoughts of if the enrollment didn't come as expected because more homeschooling or more charter school?
I'll address that. I think there's and I'm going to call it a misnomer out there that parents are leery of the 7th and 8th grade years, those developmental years in a larger setting, and therefore I believe, and I haven't had this firsthand, but that if you're going to have a spot at the charter school for 7th and 8th, you have to start in 6th. So we have a freshman class at Sandpoint High School of 280 students, but the 7th and 8th grade classes are around 243. So you can see that there's a kind of a trend, maybe 6, 7, 8, and then jump back to the high school grade 9. Mm-hmm. And so that's a trend, but in announcements I'll address that even further.
I would augment that answer by saying Forestburg Charter School went through a series of years where they were expanding their grade configuration, and we used to budget a projected loss of 50 students to Forestburg Charter School, and that held quite, pretty tried and true for several consecutive fiscal years. But in the last really 3 fiscal years, that hasn't been the case. We worked with the charter school to find out exactly which primarily elementary school students went, and so this is a change. I mean, we think they went to Forestburg Charter School, but we're not at that step to reach out to them yet.
Okay, thank you. Any Gary, question?
Is our attendance as a percentage of our enrollment, in line with Tim Hill's projection of 96%?
We've been slightly lower, more like 95, sometimes 94%. I don't know if that's because we have an alternative school where the number is actually slightly lower than that.
Yes, any other questions? Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much. Next, we'll go to action items, and we have first the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have the first reading of policy 5340, evaluation of certified personnel, and we have our HR director here. Nice to see you, Melanie. Let us know what's changed in our
Right.
evaluation
So
process.
the information that's been shared with you in your packets, I'm sorry I brought a copy of a different policy tonight, so I'm not as well prepared as I should be. But you'll see the suggested changes in your packet. Those are primarily to, again, maintain compliance with Idaho code and continue with our best practice that's currently in place in the district.
Okay, thank you. It didn't look like there were very many changes, just a few scratches out, and pretty much
Yeah,
the same. as it
there's
was
not
before.
anything terribly substantial.
Any questions by the board? Any questions at all? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Announcements. Now we have it. We hope we have somebody with some
I
announcements.
do have some announcements. So, just to like to start off that we had our first administrator meeting this morning with building administrators coming since school started, and all the reports were it's one of the best starts they've ever had. And
Right.
it was very, very positive report back. I do want to say that very impressive start. Wednesday, August 28th was a extra professional development day in the district prior to the students coming, and every elementary teacher was at Farm and Stidwell for a math professional development. Abe Wallin, math specialist for Region 1, Kathy Prummer, Andra, and then some key elementary teacher math leaders put on the professional development, and it was very, very, very impressive. I just wanted to, being a former math teacher, wanted to just sit down, and I really wanted to drive over to the high school and middle school and bring the high school teachers down to see the hard work and what was happening there. You know, really the professional development was centered around the two questions of DeForest model of professional learning communities. What do we want students to know, and how do we know they've learned it? And a lot on formative assessments and standards-based report cards. And the dedication of and involvement that the elementary teachers had there was very, very impressive. So back to the middle school a little bit. You may have seen on CREM 2 News, we've opened that up with the second school resource officer, Dave Giffen, and great reports with that. I would actually even just like to share a quick email I just received this afternoon, and this was from Casey McLaughlin at Sandpoint Middle School, and this was I'm going to read just the first paragraph of a email he received from a parent of a new student. To all Priscilla's teachers, coaches, and administrators, I just wanted to take a moment to let you all know what a wonderful experience Priscilla has had in her first week and a half of school. She gushes about how everyone is so kind to her and truly respects and enjoys all of the teachers and classes. The students have even been consistently open to welcoming her as a new student, which was not entirely expected considering the age and the stage of early teens. And then it goes on. So
Great.
a lot of positive feedback from Sandpoint Middle School there. So yeah, I was very happy to see that, and that's something that we've worked on and that we will work on sixth grade. And I know many years back we actually had some sixth grade celebrations, you know, keeping the fifth graders in our schools in sixth grade. So we will be bringing that back, and I've already started that work. Back to Gary, you mentioned a little bit about attendance. One thing that all the building administrators have been challenged with is they have their attendance for the first 10 weeks last year, and every building has an attendance goal to increase that. And I was surprisingly that the attendance was not bad. I mean, we're talking that 94 to 95, 97, but there was always some room for some improvement. So every building has been challenged to send me their attendance goal and what incentives they're going to do. Obviously, twofold when they're communicating with the families, just in case you hear about this, is that student achievement goes up. There's a direct correlation with students actually being at school. No wonder there. But also, I think it's important to be transparent, to let them know also that our school funding is 75% of it's based off the first 10 weeks. And so I don't want that to be the forefront, in the sense that I don't want anybody to think that we're just looking at students as dollars, but I think it's also important to get that message out there. And Brian Smith, Lisa, and myself started yesterday with our factual meetings centered around the indefinite term levy that will be on the ballot for November 5th. So
Great.
those are kind of the highlights, and so it's a great start.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have,
Yes, Gary?
Chairman, I
Comment?
have several things I'd like to ask. First of all, have you made any staff adjustments, you know, because of the enrollment increases or
Please
decreases?
Let me interrupt. We can't talk about anything that's policy or agenda, that could be agendized or something like that. So keep your discussion just to announcements. Otherwise, because it's not on the agenda. So if it's any manner of policy, or you're talking about anything that could be policy or something like that, it's inappropriate to bring up right now. So if you have an announcement.
So I could have one more announcement, that as of today, the enrollment has increased from even Friday, and the last report we got today was 3,840 students. That has increased just from Friday to today. And we are taking care of Bubbles. Yeah.
Okay, question. Could you notify us, schools usually have open houses, approximately
Sure.
2 weeks after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Could
Yeah,
you notify
absolutely.
us when those are?
Yeah.
Second, it's been a request, at least for the last 2 years that I've been on the board, that all the new certified teachers, new to the district certified teachers, write a letter to the board, a little bio, goals, information on
It was just, I
themselves.
think, a little bio. It was,
I think we did
Short
that,
bio.
it did come up before.
We've
we
done that
wanted
for the
just
last 2
A
years.
little bit of the
Okay.
new teachers and
All the
staff.
new certified staff,
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be nice to have.
and there's, if need be, Kelly can show you a sample of what they did last year.
Sure.
And as far as the open houses, the 3 on the east side have already done it.
But,
Both Clark Fork and North Side, yeah.
And I can tell you that Sandpoint Middle School and Sandpoint High School have taken their open house night and have had their teachers come to work to meet the freshman class and new students kind
That's
of in
right.
an orientation.
And that already happened,
So they
yeah.
traded that night out. So,
That's right.
But we will get all the others to you.
Good.
Good. Any other announcements? Okay, next we have executive session, so I will entertain a motion to go into
Make-
executive session.
Absolutely. I will make a motion that we go into executive session as provided for in Idaho Code Title 74, Section 206, subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent, or public school student.
I second.
It's been moved to second that we go into executive session as stated. Roll call vote, please.
Roll call, Trustee Superger,
Aye.
Trustee Decker,
Aye.
Trustee Lewis,
Aye.
Chair Kelly.
Aye. So we will
Okay.
now adjourn to the room downstairs.